All right, the Auckland Council will today decide on whether oil exploration should take place off the city's west coast. Councillors across the country have been voting on the government's offer of granting deep-sea drilling permits for next year. So how crucial is mineral exploitation for our economy? And should local government even be involved in decision-making? Executive Director of the New Zealand Initiative, Oliver Hartwich, joins me now. Oliver, thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Paul.
Why are councils involved in this? Surely, I mean, the government has taken the lead, but why would you even ask the council for their opinion?
That's a very good question. I mean, they have to be consulted under legislation, but I don't think they should have the final say on this because, as you rightly pointed out, this is an issue of national importance, and it is simply beyond the competence of most of these councillors to really deal with all the relevant legislation that guarantees and protects our national environment.
But I mean, at the end of the day, I come back to this whole thing, you know, we cannot operate on a level platform with the rest of the world if we're hamstrung by the likes of Len Brown.
Well, frankly, I mean, there are lots of national protections anyway for the environment. We don't need Len Brown to be involved in this. We don't need Auckland Council. The last time I checked, we had 10 pieces of national legislation actually safeguarding the environment for offshore oil and gas exploration. So really, there is no place for local councils. I'm a great believer in local democracy. I'm a great believer in government for the people, by the people, of the people, and close to the people. But this is just one of these issues in which we don't need councils involved.
No, and that is the point, isn't it? This is bureaucracy for the sake of bureaucracy. And I keep talking about best practice because we have to ensure as much as we possibly can world best standards. But as you say, those protections are in place.
The protections are in place, and if you just listen to some of the councillors, the reasons they give you for their involvement in the process is actually something that's got nothing to do with councils in the first place. There are some councillors who believe that they should be involved in oil exploration and decision-making about it because of climate change. Well, climate change has nothing to do with the council. Climate change is a national policy, such as energy policy. Next month, we'll have a United Nations summit on climate change. Well, it's a United Nations summit. It's not a United Council summit. These issues are always dealt with by national governments, not just in New Zealand, and councils simply shouldn't have a say in that.
Oh, and heaven forbid the bloody local board members from Auckland local boards will turn up at the United Nations to talk about their ideas on climate change. I mean, this is what's so ludicrous about this. And what message does this send to these major companies offshore that could be part of our future prosperity when they know that a local board in Auckland could potentially be involved in making a decision which could cost them hundreds of millions of dollars?
Well, obviously it sends exactly the wrong signal. We are already seen as one of the most difficult countries to navigate for mining companies. So in international surveys of mining companies, New Zealand typically comes out at the bottom because we know it is difficult to play the system. It takes years until you've got a permit. It actually comes with a lot of legal uncertainty because you have to defend these decisions in the courts. If we're just looking around the world, we can see a lot of other jurisdictions where it's a lot easier to get a permit and where you don't have all these legal uncertainties hanging above that system. The last thing we need is to add another complication to the system by adding councils to the decision-making process.
Okay, so what we're saying now is this mining is about the prosperity of New Zealanders if it's done right. What is your message to Greenpeace, the wowsers who just say no, it could spark catastrophe, it could cost us billions and billions of dollars? What's your message to them?
I think we have to follow international best practice. We have to, of course, be aware of the risks. We have to make sure that we minimize these risks. But if you do mining responsibly, if you really take care of the natural environment, then I think there is no reason why we should stop it.
And from an economic point of view, we have to make sure, and this is where I'm genuinely worried, we have to make sure that the royalties are sufficient to warrant us doing it. Some countries have done this spectacularly well in Europe. Do you believe that we will do it well here, or will we sell ourselves short?
No, I believe that we have an enormous potential with our minerals endowments. We have enormous amounts of minerals in New Zealand. We should just make the most of them. And we, I think, have the right legal institutional framework to make sure that we, as a country, will benefit from that if done correctly.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us, Oliver. Oliver Hartwich, New Zealand Initiative Executive Director. And so today, surrounded by croissant and sandwiches with the crusts cut off and drinking cups of tea and God knows how many cups of freshly brewed coffee, probably Nespresso, local board members and councillors will sit around mithering on about global warming, all on our ticket, being paid for by the likes of you and me, poor sorry ratepayers who are a bottomless pit to these people. They will mither on for no good reason at all. They should have nothing to do with this decision.